Today on the CTV News at 5, why a Lethbridge man wasn't sentenced as planned today for manslaughter. Plus, the rat count in Medicine Hat continues to climb. And a Hollywood actress is spotted in Lethbridge.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. Sentencing has been delayed for a Lethbridge man found guilty of manslaughter. In June of 2008, 37-year-old George Shawnee Many-Shots and his brother-in-law were discovered badly beaten in a North Lethbridge back alley. Many-Shots later died from his injuries. In November of 2009, Bradley Gray was found guilty of second-degree murder in the death. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 10 years. But then, in February, the Alberta Court of Appeal overturned Gray's murder conviction and replaced it with manslaughter. They ruled that the trial judge erred in his charge to the jury. A 30-day psychiatric assessment was ordered to help determine if Gray is a danger to the public. Now, the assessment was supposed to be completed in time for today's sentencing, but it wasn't. Instead, the lawyers and judge held a conference call to try and pick a new date. Gray will now be sentenced on November the 13th. Well, an Alberta man in his 30s died in a crash in BC yesterday afternoon. It happened just across the Alberta-BC border, about 14 kilometers east of Sparwood. The driver of a westbound truck hauling a fifth wheel hit the ditch and rolled. He died at the scene. His name has not been released. The Cessna in Sunday's crash that went down near Chain Lakes Provincial Park and left one man dead has been removed from the accident site. Sunday evening, a Cessna 172 owned by Alta Charters crashed, killing the 37-year-old pilot. Today, the wreckage was removed by truck and a flatbed trailer. Kevin Green reports.
The bright orange Cessna 172 was owned by Edmonton-based Alta Flights Charters. It was flying pipeline inspection Sunday afternoon when something went tragically, fatally wrong. Tony Webster was fixing his fence line when he saw the plane overhead. He knew right away something was wrong.
It sounded like the plane was choking out a bit just prior, and that's what really attracted my attention. And then when he went into a spiral and headed straight down, he was under power as if he was trying to pull out, and then there was a thud.
Transportation Safety Board investigators arrived over the lunch hour and spent much of Monday afternoon examining the wreckage. Pieces of the bright orange aircraft are spread over a small area in a rancher's field south of Chain Lakes Provincial Park.
Looking at everything, including weather, pilot experience, and the aircraft itself.
The 37-year-old pilot died on impact. RCMP who were at the scene say it's clear the plane slammed straight into the ground.
Plane had came down pretty much straight down and landed just at the edge of a creek bed, and then bounced across and onto up against the other side of the creek bed.
Kevin Green, CTV News, Calgary.
The name of the 37-year-old pilot still hasn't been released, awaiting notification of his family. And a reminder from police that starting this weekend, tougher new penalties for drinking and driving in Alberta kick in. Starting September the 1st, drivers with a blood alcohol content between 0.05 and 0.08 will receive an immediate 3-day license suspension and a 3-day vehicle seizure. Penalties increase with repeat offenses. Prior to the changes, a driver with an alcohol level of 0.05 to 0.08 received just a 24-hour license suspension. Police say officers are ready to enforce the new standards. Now it's time for drivers to be aware before they get behind the wheel. Okay, David Spence, we know it's going to get colder tomorrow, but just how much colder is it going to get?
Well, we'll see a good 10-degree drop in temperatures, I think, across most of southern Alberta. We've got a cold front coming through that's going to produce precipitation in some, but not all areas. Looks like southern Alberta will remain mainly dry, but behind the front, we've got some cooler weather coming in, and it looks like it's going to stay on the cool-ish side as we head toward the long weekend. Not cold by any means, just not as hot as it's been for the past couple of days. I'll tell you more later on.
Thanks, David. Alberta has 3 new cases of West Nile virus. Alberta Health Services says 3 women under the age of 65 have been diagnosed. One is from northern Alberta, another from the central region, the third from Calgary. 2 of the women with the disease contracted it outside the province. It's not known where the third woman was infected. One of the cases is the more serious form of the virus, which can cause paralysis and even death. AHS is once again urging Albertans to take precautions against the virus by wearing long-sleeved clothing and long pants, wearing insect repellent with DEET. There are now 4 confirmed cases in the province. The first, diagnosed last week, was from southern Alberta. For more information, you can visit www.fightthebite.info. Well, the rat count in Medicine Hat continues to climb. As of 8 o'clock this morning, 145 of the rodents have been killed. The majority of those were caught at the Medicine Hat landfill through the baited haystacks. However, 17 were exterminated in the city itself, 17 in Cypress County as well. Officials also say bait stations have been set up in a 3-mile radius around the landfill to help stop the spread of the rodents, and cameras have been set up to monitor rat activity at the landfill. Now, Lethbridge landfill officials say they are paying close attention to the Medicine Hat situation, but so far it's a non-issue here. Landfill officials say they've been doing extensive monitoring in and around the site for several years. Unfortunately, haven't had a problem. The site deals with about 160,000 tons of waste and recycling each year. Steve Rosie says they take a great deal of pride in remaining rat-free, but are keeping a close eye on what's happening in Medicine Hat.
Well, certainly with the rat problem they're experiencing, we're watching that closely. We're in constant communication with them on a number of landfill-related issues, just to learn from each other. We'll talk about what the cause of their problem was, because that's the main concern to us in Alberta, where you shouldn't have rats anywhere. For them to flare up at a landfill, we would want to know how they got there, and hopefully they'll be able to determine that and share that with us.
Rosie says the city's landfill does not accept waste from out of province, which likely helps to maintain their status. And Lethbridge City crews will be upgrading power poles on the north side tomorrow, and this work will leave residents living in the area of 17th Street to 18th Street North, from 3A Avenue to 2B Avenue North without power for about 3 hours. The power outage is slated to begin at 10 a.m. And a Hollywood actress is spending some downtime in Lethbridge this week. Staff at Scylla Designs were shocked when Helena Bonham Carter came into their shop on Sunday. The downtown boutique sells clothing, jewelry, and fashion accessories. Staff say the British actress was very nice and even took some time to take photographs with them. Carter is best known for roles in The Fight Club and the Harry Potter series, as well as a number of films directed by her partner, Tim Burton. She's in southern Alberta, filming the young and prodigious Spivet movie. Staff at Scylla Design say Carter's visit has generated a lot of excitement for the store.
Tons. Friends, family, a lot of customers who have not been at the store yet have come in just based on this information and how that posting has gone viral on the internet. She had purchased quite a few of the fascinators, to my knowledge, and everything, to my knowledge, that Melanie had told me was very interesting and unique to her persona.
And Carter's also been spotted at the Penny Coffee House in Lethbridge. The young and prodigious Spivet is expected to be released in theaters sometimes next year. An official opening date hasn't even been set yet for it, but a new office in Lethbridge for a defeated Tory cabinet minister is raising a lot of questions. The Premier is being accused of using taxpayer dollars to get Evan Berger re-elected. Berger, who was the Minister of Agriculture, lost his seat in the last election. The Wild Rose believes that his new position as senior policy advisor in the same ministry is a scheme to get him back in office. Kevin Armstrong joins us with more.
I think this is part of the culture of corruption of this government.
The Wild Rose has ramped up their opposition to the hiring of Evan Berger. They called foul when the former agriculture minister was hired by that same ministry last week. Now they believe there's more at play.
Why would you set up an office in his own riding for a defeated MLA, pay him $158,000 a year, and he's already admitted that he's going to run again in the next 4 years? Seems clear to me that they're using taxpayer money to campaign.
It's the opposition's job, I guess, to be opposed to everything.
Evan Berger did not return our calls. He's now a senior agriculture policy advisor. An official with the current minister sent this statement. Minister Olson is pleased that Evan will be providing policy advice to the ARD department, as Evan is very knowledgeable and well respected in rural Alberta.
This is the PC party and the PC government picking their partners and picking their buddies and allowing them to campaign on taxpayer dollars. And the ethics commissioner is supposed to prevent these exact situations, and he clearly isn't doing his job.
The commissioner looked and determined that Mr. Berger was eligible.
Alberta's Conflict of Interest Act restricts former ministers being hired by the government for a year.
We reviewed the contract, and conditions were placed on his contract of employment in order to comply with the legislation.
What are those conditions?
Under the Act, everything's confidential.
When Berger lost his seat as the MLA for Livingstone-Macleod, he became eligible for a $147,000 transition allowance. The Premier's office is not commenting on that issue. A Southern Alberta bee farm is creating a lot of buzz lately. The Chinook Honey operation recently held their 7th annual Harvest Festival. With a look, here's this week's Farm.tv.
Farm.tv dropped by Chinook Honey during their Harvest Festival. This year's festival included live music, a wagon ride tour of the farm, and several beehives, as well as the very popular meadery tour and an open hive tour, along with plenty of activities for children and adults. We spoke with owner Sherry Andrews about this year's honey crop.
2012 has actually been not bad. It started off fairly nice and warm with an early kind of spring. The wet weather in June wasn't all that great though, and that did cause some problems. There was about a 3-week span where the bees just couldn't get out for feeding, so we did have some losses because of that.
In addition to producing products like honey and beeswax, bees are important to agriculture because they pollinate many crops.
Bees are very fascinating. The more you study them, the more you learn about them. You have to respect their intelligence, I guess, if you will, their organization. They're just amazing in what they can produce.
The visitors attending this year's festival were very interested in all aspects of beekeeping and bee products. We asked Sherry what question they get asked the most.
The most common question we always get is, how many times have you been stung? You know, without a doubt. And, you know, as a beekeeper, when you're working bees, generally it's not unusual to have, say, 1 sting per outing.
For more information, contact ChinookHoney.com.
Farm TV is brought to you by DA Building Systems.
And to the stock markets today, where coincidentally, as Hurricane Isaac approaches the East Coast, West Texas crude prices went up.